voting does not ensure democracy. You with me? So voting can be used as a shield against criticism for autocracy. You see what I'm saying? When people say we have the right to vote, we have the freest country on the face, that doesn't make the country the freest country on the face of the earth. It helps, but it depends on the circumstances, doesn't it? We have this Turkish President Erdogan. This guy is an Islamo-Nazi. The mayor of Istanbul, very popular, also opposes him, a real small d Democrat. Last week he threw him in prison, and Erdogan does not tolerate that sort of thing. He is an Islamo-Nazi. That's what he is. He was involved in overthrowing Assad, who was a mass murderer. Look, they're all mass murderer, genocidal maniacs in that part of the world, the Arabs and the regime in Iran. That's the way it works. That's the way it works. And you've got either secular military despots or you have Islamist fundamentalist despots. You know, pick your poison. So in any event, this guy Erdogan is an Islamist despot. And they have these pretend elections where he's always winning. He always has these efforts to cleanse the population, cleanse the military, cleanse the police forces, and so forth. He shouldn't be in NATO. This guy shouldn't be in NATO. You might say, well, he'll go to the Russians. The Russians can't stand him either. He's an egomaniac. He's a real nut job. So as I say, he threw the mayor of Istanbul in prison. By the way, a Muslim who believes in democracy. You look at Turkey, you had Ataturk. Ataturk is sort of the modern, I guess you would, George Washington of Turkey. And he set up a secular state where Muslims live, mostly Muslims, but also Christians and others thrive and so forth. This guy came in and destroyed the whole thing, just destroyed it. He's a nut, but he's dangerous. So he wants bases in Syria. So what did the Israelis do last week? They took out every one of the bases. They just annihilated them. He keeps threatening Israel. He's a real Jew hater, but he's an American hater too. He pretends otherwise. They all pretend otherwise because they fear America. They certainly fear Trump. But let's take a little listen at this. This is very short. Memory report. I've told you before about Memory, MEMRI.org, MEMRI.org. You really ought to bookmark that and check it out because what they do there is they have translators. And so they'll translate like Farsi, or they'll translate Arabic, or they'll translate Cantonese, depending if it's in China or whatever it is, and they'll tell you what these people are saying. In this case, what they're saying in the mosques, what these imams in America are saying in a different language and so forth. They have all this stuff. It's just incredible. That's why you'll learn so much about Qatar, not just from them, but they're a very important piece of it, that Qatar is a terrorist regime. I see the president's going to visit them. I'm doing everything I can to kind of tell the people in the administration and other Republicans, stay away from this country. They're funding Hamas. They're funding the Islamo-Nazi Hitler Youth in our own country. They fund the enemy. Stay away from these people. But they put money into, what is it, Live, the golf tournaments and so forth, and tennis tournaments, and you know, they play the game of the West, while in fact they have the sharp knives out for us. So here he is, Erdogan. Go.
Filistin'de yaşananları görüyoruz, biliyoruz ve Siyonist İsrail'i Rabbim Kahhar ismi şerifi hürmetine kahru perişan eylesin. Ve hep birlikte inşallah oradaki yaşananları görerek kendi içimizde bir olalım, iri olalım, diri olalım, kardeş olalım. Rabbim bu birliğimizi daim eylesin.
The Turkish people don't want him either. They had a coalition of opposition parties that got together. They ran their candidate, even though the opposition parties had a lot of internal disagreement. Their candidate got more votes than he did. He's in charge, obviously, and there he is. Still there. But the people of Turkey, there's about a third or 40% who buy into all this, but most of them don't. By the way, side point on this. Voting does not ensure democracy. You with me? Voting does not ensure democracy. They're voting. Do they have a democracy? No, they don't have a democracy. So voting can be used as a shield against criticism for autocracy. You see what I'm saying? So when people say we have the right to vote, we have the freest country on the face, that doesn't make the country the freest country on the face of the earth. It helps, but it depends on the circumstances, doesn't it? We have some of this in our own country, where people say, particularly the left, if they win, we voted, so we get to do X, Y, Z. Now, that doesn't mean you get to do X, Y, Z, because there's other parts of the government. So when they win elections, they point to the vote, they say they have a mandate, and you saw Biden ignored the Supreme Court. He was doing whatever he wanted to do, even though he didn't know what he was doing, but his people knew what he was doing. And so there you are, you're embracing the electoral part of our government. Now they're out of power, they lost office, and now they're embracing the permanent part of the government to undermine the electoral part of our government. Because the ends justify the means for the American Marxists, the so-called progressive. Vote. If it turns out the way they want, great. Then they have a mandate. If it doesn't, then they need subterfuge. They need to sabotage what's taking place. And then they will use our language to defend it. Oh, you're anti-Constitution. Oh, you're anti-democracy, or you're anti-republicanism, or you're this or you're that, when in fact, that's them. You're the opposite of it. So they have a vote in Turkey. It doesn't matter. They had a vote in Gaza. Hamas was elected. They haven't had a vote since. They had a vote in the Palestinian territories, what I call occupied Palestinian territories, because they're occupying territories that were never theirs. Oh, excuse me. Can I speak the truth? That's the truth. Abbas was elected like 20-some years ago. He never held another election because they'd lose. So Hamas would win, but Abbas would lose because he's not enough of an effective terrorist. He's a terrorist. But, you know, you got to go wipe out, rape, maim, burn alive, that sort of thing. Then you've earned my vote, apparently. You get the point? So voting in and of itself doesn't ensure democracy. It certainly doesn't ensure liberty. In fact, one more point on this. Look at your Constitution. Originally under the Constitution, you voted for a House of Representatives, direct. That was the only direct vote there was. The Senate was chosen by the state legislatures. The president and the vice president, of course, there's a national election, but there's an electoral college process that comes between the popular vote and the president and the vice president. People say, oh, that's anti-democratic. No, that's pro-small r republicanism. To ensure that states that don't have big populations have representation. To ensure that states that do have populations, that the city, the metropolitan areas are the only ones that have an effective voice. To make sure that's not the case. The whole point is harmony and unity. That's what the Electoral College is all about. So if you just have a national popular vote, 11 or 12 states are the only states that'll matter. And within those states, it'll be the cities. And that'll be it. So everybody else, what are we going to do? Say we had an election, we had a popular vote. Look at this. The same people keep winning over and over and over again. That's what I mean. Elections and democracy are very important. Elections and voting are very important, but they don't necessarily mean democracy. And by the way, I'm using democracy and republicanism alternatively here. I don't need lectures about the difference. I'm well aware of them. But that's why voting in and of itself doesn't ensure democracy. It certainly doesn't ensure liberty. One more point on this. Read your Declaration of Independence. Your rights don't come from government. They come from God. Your rights are unalienable. That means they're not supposed to be taken by government or any man. The truths are eternal, meaning certain things are good and certain things are evil, and that's the way it is. It's called morality. It's called values that are handed down to us from God, and for many of us, Judeo-Christian precepts. a fusion between the Enlightenment and faith. And that's how you come up with the greatest country on the face of the earth, the United States of America.
For all this and much more, sign up for Levin TV.